The Andromedan general's mocking laughter stabbed at Chris Carter's heart. As the young pilot prepared his fighter for the joint exercise, Chris's hands tightened on the controls. He had graduated top of his class from the academy, only to be ridiculed by this sneering alien. But the general would soon learn that human spirit and skill could not be measured by the size of their fleet. Chris was one of only 3 human pilots chosen for this exercise with the Andromedan Stellar Imperium. The best of the best, but next to the sleek, advanced alien ships, his scimitar fighter looked like a child's toy. In the ready room, Commander Thompson had pulled Chris aside with a solemn warning. General Vortis despises humans. He wants to see us fail. But this exercise is critical. If we impress the Andromedans, they may share some of their technology. It could change the course of human space exploration. Don't let Vortis get under your skin, no matter what. Show them what humanity is made of. Chris launched and joined the formation, human and Andromedan fighters side by side. He pushed all thoughts of the sneering general from his mind. Focus, fly, win, for the future of his species. The simulated combat began. Chris danced his scimitar through the fight with almost inhuman precision, outmaneuvering every ship the scenario threw at him. His fellow pilots whooped and cheered over the comms, until a cold voice crackled in his ears. General Vortis. You human, I am not impressed by your simple tricks. You will face my elite squadron alone so I can show your kind your true place. If you flee, I will have you stripped of your wings myself. You are nothing, human, nothing. Chris gritted his teeth as General Vortis's elite ships swarmed around him like a pack of hungry wolves. The scimitar shook as plasma bolts slammed into its shields. Warning lights flashed red across the control panel. But Chris refused to let the fear take hold. He thought back to his days at the academy, poring over ancient human military texts, the great aerial battles of the 20th and 21st centuries. Those long-ago pilots had faced impossible odds too, and triumphed. Chris wrenched the flight stick hard to port, sending his ship into a tight spiral. The G-forces crushed him back into his seat as he corkscrewed through the heart of the Andromedan formation. Alien ships scattered in all directions to avoid a collision. He straightened it out and activated his targeting computer, fingers flying across the controls as he set up his shot. A hair's breadth opening, he squeezed the trigger. Twin bolts of superheated plasma lanced out from the scimitar's cannons. The Andromedan ship directly in Chris's crosshairs exploded in a ball of fire. "Huh? Terran scum." General Vortis's voice blasted across the comm channel. "You cannot win, we have you surrounded." "That's what you think," Chris muttered. He rolled his ship into a steep dive, plummeting toward the blue-green planet below. The Andromedan ships gave chase, plasma fire stitching lines of destruction through space all around him. The altimeter on Chris's HUD spun downward at a dizzying rate as the scimitar knifed into the upper atmosphere. At the last possible second, he hauled back on the stick. His ship groaned in protest as he used the planet's gravity to slingshot himself back up behind the pursuers. The elite alien pilots were caught off guard by the daring maneuver. Chris punched the afterburners and opened fire, sending another Andromedan ship spiraling away in flames. Vortis's voice crackled with rage. "All ships, focus fire on that human, tear him apart." A storm of plasma bolts and antimatter missiles bore down on Chris's lone scimitar. He juked and jinked, pushing his ship to its absolute limits. Sweat poured down his face inside his helmet. Warning alarms blared. Shields down to 30%, 20%, 10%. He couldn't dodge forever. Time for one last desperate gamble. Chris's fingers danced across the console, broadcasting a wild sequence of EM pulses in all directions. The Andromedan sensors, finely tuned marvels of advanced technology, reeled under the assault of random electromagnetic noise. Their targeting computers flickered and glitched. Chris seized his chance. He whipped the scimitar through a tight turn and charged the disoriented aliens head-on, cannons blazing. 1 ship, 2 ships, 3 ships erupted into flames under his onslaught before limping away from the fight in defeat. And then only General Vortis remained. The arrogant general screamed with wordless rage. His ship spat a salvo of a dozen antimatter missiles straight at Chris, a final, spiteful attempt to destroy the human who had humiliated him. Chris slammed his fist down on the flare release. A burst of blinding light and reflective chaff exploded out behind his scimitar. The antimatter missiles, their tracking systems confused, veered off course and detonated in the empty void of space. The shockwaves rattled Chris's ship, but the flares had done their job. He didn't have a second to lose. Chris punched the afterburners, the force slamming him back in his seat as the scimitar leapt forward. General Vortis's ship loomed ahead, growing rapidly larger in his view screen. Chris narrowed his eyes, studying the energy emanating from the alien craft. There was something strange about the shield signature, something almost rhythmic. A memory flashed through his mind, a briefing he'd nearly dozed off in back at the academy. The Andromedan shield technology, the instructor droning on about rotating frequencies and resonance. At the time, Chris had wondered why it mattered. Now he knew. His hands flew across the console, making lightning-fast adjustments to his laser cannon. He silently thanked his old instructor as he synced the frequency to the Andromedan shields. One shot, perfectly timed with the shield rotation, was all he would get. "Dodge this," Chris growled. He pulled the trigger. A lance of searing light leapt from his cannon, punching clean through Vortis's shields like they were made of paper. The Andromedan ship shuddered as the laser tore into its engines. Explosions blossomed across the alien hull, the sleek craft starting to spin out of control. But Chris had no time to celebrate. Vortis's crippled ship was plummeting toward the planet below, trailing smoke and flames. Without a second thought, Chris angled his scimitar into a steep dive, chasing after his fallen foe. He couldn't leave Vortis to die. Not like this. Not when the Andromedan had fought with such skill and determination, misguided as it was. The two ships hurtled toward the surface, the blue-green orb of the planet rushing up to meet them at dizzying speed. Chris gritted his teeth, fighting to keep his ship steady in Vortis's turbulent wake. At the last moment, he managed to maneuver beneath the stricken Andromedan fighter. He activated his tractor beam, the invisible force reaching out to slow Vortis's descent. The two ships hit the ground together, skidding across the rocky terrain in a billowing cloud of dust and debris. Chris was out of his cockpit in an instant, sprinting toward the wreckage of Vortis's ship. He had to make sure the general was alive. He tore the Andromedan canopy open, dreading what he might find inside. But General Vortis was already emerging from the smoking remains of his fighter. The proud alien commander was battered and bruised, but very much alive. He stared at Chris, surprise and something like respect flickering in his compound eyes. "You saved me," Vortis said slowly, as if he couldn't quite believe the words. "After everything, you risked your life for me." Chris met the general's gaze steadily. "Of course I did. Leaving you to die would have been wrong, and you fought well. You made me earn this victory." Vortis was silent for a long moment. Then he extended a clawed hand to Chris. "You have proven yourself a true warrior, human. I was wrong to dismiss your kind so easily. You have shown not just skill, but honor and compassion. I am humbled by your actions today." As Chris clasped the general's hand, the rest of the human and Andromedan fighters touched down around them. The other pilots stared in amazement at the sight of the two former enemies, standing together amidst the wreckage as equals. It was a moment none of them would ever forget, the moment when a simple training exercise had turned into something far greater, a bridge between two species forged in the fires of combat and tempered by mutual respect. The joint human Andromedan search and recovery team touched down near the crash site, kicking up clouds of dust as their ships settled on the rocky terrain. Chris and Vortis watched as the rescue party disembarked, a mix of human and Andromedan personnel working together seamlessly. As they approached the downed fighters, Chris couldn't help but feel a sense of camaraderie with the Andromedan rescuers, a stark contrast to the animosity that had colored their earlier interactions. The team quickly assessed the damage to the ships and the condition of the pilots. Satisfied that neither Chris nor Vortis had suffered serious injuries, they escorted the two pilots to a waiting transport ship. As they settled into their seats for the journey back to the UES Titan, an uncomfortable silence descended between them. Chris glanced at Vortis, noting the way the General's claws tapped nervously against his leg. He cleared his throat. "General, I just wanted to say, that was some impressive flying out there. Your pilots are incredibly skilled." Vortis met Chris's gaze, his compound eyes unreadable. "As are you, human. I must admit I underestimated your abilities. Your tactics were unconventional but effective. I have never seen a pilot use a planet's gravity well to their advantage in such a way." Chris shrugged, a small smile tugging at his lips. "I learned from the best. The pilots of Earth's past faced incredible odds, but they never gave up. They adapted, innovated, and found ways to overcome any challenge." Vortis nodded slowly. "I see that now. I allowed my prejudice to cloud my judgment. I thought humans were weak, but you have shown me the strength of your spirit. I was wrong to dismiss your kind so easily. For that, I apologize." Chris extended his hand to the Andromedan general. "Apology accepted. I think we both learned something today. I had my own preconceptions about your people, but you've shown me that there is much we can learn from each other." Vortis grasped Chris's hand firmly, a gesture of respect and understanding passing between them. The rest of the journey passed in comfortable conversation, the two pilots sharing stories of their training and experiences. As the transport ship docked with the UES Titan, Chris and Vortis were surprised to find a delegation of human and Andromedan officers waiting for them in the hangar bay. Admiral Sato of the UES and High Commander Zaxos of the Andromedan fleet stood at the front of the group, their expressions a mix of pride and satisfaction. "Lieutenant Carter, General Vortis," Admiral Sato greeted them warmly. "Welcome back. We've been monitoring your exercise closely, and I must say we are impressed by what we've seen." High Commander Zaxos nodded in agreement. "Indeed, your display of skill, adaptability, and sportsmanship has set a new standard for our joint operations. You have shown us the potential for cooperation and mutual respect between our species." Chris and Vortis exchanged a glance, both humbled by the praise from their superiors. Admiral Sato continued, "In light of your exceptional performance, High Commander Zaxos has an announcement to make." The Andromedan leader stepped forward. "As a gesture of goodwill and trust, the Andromedan Stellar Imperium has decided to share a portion of our advanced technology with our human allies. This includes our latest shield generators and improved energy weapons. We believe that by working together and sharing our knowledge, we can face any challenge the galaxy may present." Admiral Sato smiled. "And in return we offer our own expertise. Human tactics and strategies have proven invaluable in the past, and we believe that by combining our diverse perspectives, we can create a military force like no other." Chris and Vortis could hardly believe what they were hearing. The implications of this exchange were staggering, a new era of cooperation and understanding between their species. As the delegation dispersed, Admiral Sato and High Commander Zaxos approached Chris and Vortis. "Lieutenant Carter, General Vortis, we have one more matter to discuss. Please, come with us." The two pilots followed their leaders to a private briefing room, curiosity and anticipation building with each step. Once inside, Admiral Sato turned to face them. "The joint exercise you participated in was more than just a training mission. It was a test, designed to identify pilots with exceptional skills and the ability to adapt to new challenges. And you two have passed with flying colors." High Commander Zaxos nodded. "Which is why we have selected you to lead a new elite unit, composed of both human and Andromedan pilots. Your mission will be to undertake the most challenging assignments, to push the boundaries of what is possible, and to serve as a symbol of unity between our species." Chris and Vortis looked at each other, a mix of excitement and trepidation in their eyes. They knew that this assignment would test them like never before, but they also knew that together they could achieve the impossible. "We accept," they said in unison, their voices filled with determination. Admiral Sato smiled. "Excellent. Your new unit will be designated Unity Squadron. Your first mission briefing will be tomorrow, at 800 hours. Get some rest, gentlemen. You've earned it. As Chris and Vortis left the briefing room, they knew that their lives had changed forever. They were no longer just pilots, but ambassadors of a new era. An era of cooperation, understanding and unity between humans and Andromedans. And they were ready to face whatever challenges the galaxy had in store. The rhythmic hum of the ship's engines filled the briefing room as Chris Carter and General Vortis studied the holographic display before them. In the months since the formation of Unity Squadron, the elite human Andromedan unit had faced numerous challenges, their combined skills and technology making them a formidable force. But this mission was different. Intelligence reports scrolled across the screen, detailing a rogue Andromedan faction that opposed the alliance with humanity. Vortis's mandibles clicked as he read the data. They've developed a weapon capable of destroying entire star systems. We must neutralize it before they can deploy it. Chris nodded, his face grim. Agreed. Our team will infiltrate their stronghold and take out the weapon. Failure is not an option. As Unity Squadron approached the target, the calm of space erupted into chaos. A massive fleet of heavily armed ships ambushed them, plasma bolts and missiles streaking through the void. At the helm of the enemy fleet was Vortis's former rival, a bitter Andromedan who sought to overthrow the government and shatter the human alliance. In the heart of the battle, Chris and Vortis fought side by side, their ships weaving through the enemy fire with practiced precision. The rest of Unity Squadron engaged the hostile forces, their combined human and Andromedan technology proving a match for the rogue faction's firepower. But as the battle raged on, the grim reality of their situation became clear. They were vastly outnumbered and outgunned. Chris gritted his teeth as his ship shuddered under another barrage of plasma fire. We can't hold them off forever. We need a new plan. Vortis's eyes narrowed as he studied the tactical display. We must disable their command systems. If we can board the flagship and take out the bridge, it will throw their fleet into disarray. Chris met Vortis's gaze, understanding the risk they were about to take. Let's do it. The two leaders fought their way through the enemy ships, their squadron providing cover, as they closed in on the massive flagship. They docked with the enemy vessel, breaching the airlock and storming inside. The corridors of the ship were a labyrinth of twisting metal and flickering lights. Chris and Vortis battled their way through hordes of enemy soldiers, their weapons flashing in the dimness. The Andromedan troops fought with a desperate ferocity, but they were no match for the skill and determination of the two Unity Squadron leaders. As they burst into the command center, they found themselves face to face with Vortis's rival. The rogue Andromedan leader sneered at them, his eyes burning with hatred. "You're too late," he hissed. "The weapon is primed and ready to fire. In moments, your precious human colony will be nothing but ashes." Chris and Vortis charged forward, engaging the rival in a fierce hand-to-hand battle. They traded blows, the room ringing with the clash of metal and the crackle of energy weapons. With a final, desperate effort, they managed to overpower the rogue leader, sending him crashing to the floor. But their victory was short-lived. The rival laughed, a cruel gurgling sound as he reached for the console. "You may have defeated me, but you've still lost." His clawed finger stabbed down on the firing controls, activating the weapon's sequence. Chris and Vortis stared at the display in horror, watching as the countdown began. Vortis rushed to the console, his claws flying over the controls as he tried to abort the firing sequence. But it was no use. The rogue leader had locked out the system. There was only one way to stop it now. Vortis turned to Chris, a look of grim determination on his face. "The weapon can only be disabled from inside the firing chamber, but whoever goes in there will be exposed to lethal levels of radiation." Chris shook his head. "No, we'll find another way. We can't lose you, not now." But Vortis was already moving, striding towards the chamber door. "There is no other way. It has been an honor to fight alongside you, Chris Carter. Tell our people of the sacrifice we made here today." Before Chris could stop him, Vortis wrenched open the door and stepped inside. The chamber sealed behind him, the locking mechanism engaging with a final, heavy clang. Through the viewing port, Chris could only watch as Vortis made his way to the weapon's core. The Andromedan's movements were slow, his body already ravaged by the deadly radiation flooding the chamber. But he did not falter. With a final Herculean effort, Vortis reached the core and initiated the shutdown sequence. The weapon powered down, its menacing hum fading into silence. The Andromedan slumped to the floor, his life extinguished in a final act of courage and sacrifice. As the human and Andromedan fleets arrived to secure the area, Chris could only stand in numb silence, mourning the loss of his friend and partner. The alliance between their species had been forged in the crucible of shared sacrifice, the bonds of respect and understanding stronger than ever. In the days that followed, Chris was hailed as a hero by both humans and Andromedans alike, but the accolades felt hollow without Vortis by his side. As he took up the mantle of leadership, Chris swore to honor his fallen comrade's legacy, to fight for the peace they had both believed in. For in the end, it was not the strength of their weapons or the skill of their pilots that had saved them. It was the power of friendship, the unwavering determination to stand together in the face of adversity. And that was a force that could never be defeated. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.